pro-Iranian militia and their supporters have pulled back from the US Embassy in Baghdad after a second day of violence. Let's get more on that story and the situation in Iraq, where Lieutenant General David Deptula is a retired US Air Force commander who controlled some of America's biggest air combat operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. He joins me from Arlington, Virginia. Thank you so much for your time. First of all, I wonder if you have any information or a theory about why these protesters have withdrawn almost as quickly as they've arrived.
Well, thank you, Regid. I would suggest to you that I think that the Iraqi leadership understands the significance and the importance of needing to control these militants who, as I think your audience could see from the clip that you showed, that they're not really protesters at all. They're militants of the Hezbollah brigades that are really an Iraqi Shia paramilitary group. But I think they understand, I mean, the Iraqi leadership understands that they need to control these folks because there are serious consequences if, in fact, they're not controlled and they're allowed to continue their aggression against the American embassy.
I wonder what happens now and how the United States and Iraq get to a point where they can smooth things out in terms of the relationship and where Iran is involved?
Well, it's a good question. The embassy attack and the ongoing U.S. response really present a stark choice for Iraq's leaders about the country's future. Namely, will they opt for international isolation akin to Iran's, or for the type of sovereign functional governance that Iraqi protesters have been asking and dying for since October 1st. Now, at the same time, if I may, the U.S. faces its own quandary. While the air attacks against the Hezbollah brigades were necessary, carrying out attacks without taking other policy measures could give Iraqi political elites an excuse for delaying critical reforms. These are the same reforms that the demonstrators are asking for.
It's an interesting point that you make about a choice with the U.S. I mean, isn't there an issue here that if the United States doesn't really want to commit to keeping troops and really supporting the Iraqi government is going to have to turn to Iran and Iranian interests?
I don't believe that that is a fundamental conclusion. I think the Iraqi leadership understands, and there are many leaders that are willing to stand up against Iranian pressure in order to protect their own interests. If you take a look at the fact that Iraq still needs U.S. security assistance to stave off any resurgent Islamic State, and additionally, Iraq's power needs are currently being met by Iranian natural gas, and they can't buy that without U.S. sanctions waivers. So, you know, there's a position where the Iraqi leadership, as I mentioned earlier, they've got a choice. They can succumb into the Iranian camp, or they can support their own national sovereignty, and the United States is willing to help them.
Lieutenant General David Deptula, thank you very much for your thoughts on a very complex story.